Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the African-American history in Nashville, Tennessee between 1780 and 1930. And of course we have with us the author of the book, The African-American History in Nashville between 1790 and 1930, Professor Dr. DrBLovett from Tennessee State University, who is also the Dean of the School of the College of Arts and Sciences at Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Lovett, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney.
And indeed, Dr. Lovett, to say that and as many of our viewers probably know, we've had you on this show on a number of occasions, talking about African-American history from a national point of view. You've talked about the Declaration of Independence with us, the Constitution of the United States, just a number of other topics. And we also know that this is a book that you've been working on for the last 15 to 20, 25 years. In other words, it's almost a lifelong project, as many of us who are involved in this whole process of history know. And of course, what we'd like to do today is to give you an opportunity to talk about this book and to tell folks, because I know that it's been sold throughout Nashville and many other areas, and that you've got quite an audience dealing with it, and we want to try to at least tap into that and to talk about this book and to give you an opportunity to do so. But before we get into that, Dr. Lovett, let's have you to give us some information about Dr. DrBLovett, your background, your education, and some of the other things that were important that led you to the College of Arts and Sciences as the Dean, and eventually led you to write in this book dealing with the history of Nashville between those periods.
Well, my education really began growing up in Memphis, Tennessee. I graduated from high school there at Booker T. Washington High School. Went on to do my undergraduate work at Arkansas A&M State College, my master's and PhD at the University of Arkansas. And I've done some little minor studies at Howard University, and I've even taken courses in graduate computer science at Tennessee State, where I've worked for the last 26 years. And before coming to Tennessee State, I was at Eureka College in Illinois. And since being at TSU in the last 26 years, I've served not only as professor, but as a department head, assistant dean and associate dean, and currently I'm dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, a position I've held for the last 12 years.
You know, Dr. Lovett, I think to talk about some of your activities in this publication especially, this deals with the African-American as a group in Nashville, Tennessee between those periods. Let's allow you to sort of give our audience doing this show an overview of this book. That is to look at some of the areas that you think are important and to tell us why we ought to have this as the African-American experience in our libraries. And later on we'll talk about
as you pointed out, this book did take about 15 years because also during that time I was working full-time as administrator, and so I did not have full time to do research and writing and so on. So it took a little longer than it probably would have taken me otherwise. But also I wrote this book because there existed no book on the African-American history of Nashville. Right now, there's no book on the African-American history of Memphis or Chattanooga or Knoxville. Those are books still to come. And so to write these kind of books is very difficult to find the facts and the resources and the documents. That takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of time. I tried to do three things in this book. One, to make it a good analysis of history, so there's a lot of interpretation in the book. But also to interest people in reading the book. There are a lot of good stories in the book. And it also is a book that is sort of encyclopedic, and that is, it has a lot of facts in the book. And some things that people know about and most things that they do not know about, of course, are in this book. And there are 10 chapters in the book dealing with education, religion, schools, colleges, dealing with slavery, free Negroes who lived in Nashville, the Civil War, how the neighborhoods developed in Nashville, Tennessee, dealing with business and reform. There are almost every aspect I tried to cover in this particular book, and that was difficult to do. But it covers the period from 1780, the year that Nashville was founded as Fort Nashville, and we stopped at the Great Depression in 1930. And the book, of course, is full of information. And so far, it's been doing quite well. All the bookstores should have it. They can also get it on the internet, Amazon.com, or they can go to the internet and pull up the University of Arkansas Press, which published the book, and they can order direct through their computer, or they can go to a Keebalon, for example, Images and Bookstore on 28th and Jefferson, or the Elders Bookstore on Elliston Place, Davis Kidd. All of them have ordered
All
copies.
of the major booksellers
Right.
will
Vanderbilt
have
University Bookstore, TSU University Bookstore have ordered copies of the book.
Let's talk about the African-American experience, DrBLovett in Nashville, because I think, as you know, generally many of us think in terms of Tennessee entering the Union in the 1790s. And so what you're saying is that this book even goes back to the period. Let's explain, deal with some of those areas that you'd like to
Well,
deal with.
the book does precede Tennessee coming into the Union. Tennessee entered the Union and became a state in 1796. And of course, this book precedes that by 16 years because the book really starts at 1780. To tell you the truth, I started the book really in the winter of December 1779. And that is because that is the period when the first settlers came. But with those settlers, of course, were African Americans. Most of them were slaves, but there were some free African American families with the settlers who founded Nashville.
With the original settlers that founded
With the original settlers in 1780, and I talk about some of those in that book. But African Americans made up about 25% of the population, about what they make up today of Nashville. And that's a significant percentage. And of course, they were engaged in every occupation you can imagine, and therefore were very important to the economy and the well-being of this particular new frontier city. And as you read about them, which is the first 2 chapters of the book, you probably become a little amazed at how complex African American society was before the Civil War and before slavery ended.
What do you mean when you say how complex? Why don't you give us some idea, some understanding as to how this complexity?
One of the things I try to explain in the book is that African Americans were not monolithic, and that is, they were not all slaves, they were not all free Negroes, for example. One of the groups that I categorize in the book are called quasi-independent slaves. And these persons were slaves, but they were slaves who were allowed by their masters to live separately, rent a house, or rent a rooming house with other quasi-independent slaves and so on. And they brought the master part of what they earned, but they went to work every day. They worked for somebody else, and they gave the master part of the money, hopefully saved enough money that one day they could buy their freedom and so on. 22% of African Americans in Nashville were free, a very large percentage. And then, of course, there were also 25% of African Americans who were hired slaves. And that is, the masters hired them out. In other words, slavery operated in the urban environment like Nashville, whereby doctors and lawyers and merchants and businessmen purchased slaves and then hired the slaves out to make extra money. And a slave could bring as much as $150 a year. They could recover their investment in that slave in 7 years.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Love, let me interrupt here because we're coming up, excuse me, our first commercial break. After we come back, we'll allow you to continue this analysis of the African-American population in Tennessee and to give us some additional information, and especially some information in reference to this hiring out system, because I think that not many folks are familiar with that. And let's do that when we come back for this second break after this commercial break. And we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break. The topic is the history